Today's procurement tip is on how to spot an expert when you yourself are not an expert as a procurement agent. So the buyers are required to procure a wide range of services, including IT, construction, marketing, travel, and the list goes on. But as technology and techniques are continually improving, it's become increasingly more difficult, if not impossible, for the buyer to maintain sufficient internal expertise for all these services. This is evident as some buyers have even begun hiring subject matter expert consultants to assist in the procurement of targeted services. The issue is that whether you maintain the expertise within your own organization or hire a third-party expert, costs will inevitably rise. There's also the question as to the quality of that expertise. How can buyers maintain the same level of expertise or higher as vendors who perform that same service day in and day out with multiple different clients? People rarely stop to consider why internal expertise is needed in the first place. Why does a buyer need any expertise in the service they're procuring? Can a buyer without any expertise identify and utilize an expert vendor? But after years of research now, it's been proven the buyer doesn't need to be an expert. The buyer doesn't need any technical expertise on their end, and they can utilize experts and identify them without any expertise. And in this video, we're going to cover the simple ways you can ensure that you have an expert for your project, including proven characteristics and essential supporting evidence that you should get from all your vendors. And so let's begin with first the characteristics of an expert, and this is the most important because this is misunderstood by people a lot when we talk to them. Now, the first characteristic is they should be able to predict the future. The quickest way to identify an expert is their ability to see into the future. Now, I'm going to use an example of a water bottle. If I were to hold this water bottle in the air now and release it 100 times, what percent of the time would it fall downwards? Even before releasing the bottle once, you were able to predict that 100% of the time it would fall down. Now, how were you able to do this? As simple as this example seems, it's a perfect representation of an expert's mind. The release of a water bottle is a project where you are the expert. The situation is very simple. You know what a water bottle is and you know about gravity. It's simple to you because you understand it and therefore you are an expert in that project or the water bottle. Now, when you understand a project, it consequently means you'll be able to predict the future of that project. Just like you're able to predict a water bottle would fall without me doing it. The more expertise you have in any area, the greater accuracy of your predictions. The less expertise you have, the less accurate your predictions will be. As an individual is asked to look farther into the future, a greater amount of expertise is required. Now, if you receive responses such as, it's impossible to know the future, there are too many variables, or maybe it's too complex, and we will only know after we start working. There's a high possibility that the person you're talking to is not an expert and should not be on the project. Now, the second way to do it, after they can see into the future, they can also make it simple. Because an expert understands a project, it's simple for them. For other people without that knowledge, we'll call non-experts, the situation can seem quite complex. But a mark of a true expert is their ability to simplify a situation so that those without their technical expertise, these non-experts, can understand and see into the future without having to know everything the expert knows. When hiring an expert, it's important to always ask the expert to show you the future in terms of a simple plan. An expert should never ask you to trust them because a situation is too complex for you to understand. It is not necessary for you to understand all that the expert understands, but an expert will always make it simple so that you can understand the problem, the methods used to solve the problem, and the end result. When projects are simple and everyone can understand regardless of their expertise, the expert has created what we call transparency. Now, if an expert is unable to relay things to you in a simple, understandable plan, it's an indicator that that person may not be an expert and may not understand the situation themselves. Because if they did, they would be able to explain it simply to you. Now, the last main characteristic you should look for is the ability to tell the difference. Experts should be able to explain differences they see in the project. Things could be like what makes a project different than previous projects in terms of risk, people involved, and the requirement. They could say why they were selected and how they are different than other vendors and people within their company. They can even tell you the difference between the project's current state, key milestones, and the final outcome that you'll be receiving. If a vendor cannot tell the difference or believes there is nothing unique or different about your project, you may not have an expert. Now, if you're paying attention, I told you should never trust an expert. The evidence should always be there of their expertise, and it should be simple and understandable. And the two biggest ways I think you can look for is one, low cost. The phrase experts cost less but profit more seems too good to be true, but it is an accurate statement. One of the common lines we hear to justify a higher price is that we're paying more for expertise. However, you have to ask yourself, is this logically making sense to you? As a client, we have a project that we hire an expert to perform. Ultimately, we're hiring an expert to lower our costs and not to increase our costs. Experts are able to see into the future and create an accurate and efficient plan. The expert's efficiency lowers costs by doing things right the first time with no mistakes, doing things at the most efficient time, and using the lowest costing material which can meet the client's requirement, which is zero waste. In other words, experts increase their profit by improving their efficiency and not by increasing their costs. Now, sometimes, and we don't have enough time in this video to explain it, experts may appear to cost more only because they're pricing in contingency. Sometimes experts know that the client will try to transfer costs of risk to them. So the expert many times will create a contingency pot so that when they get charged for these extra costs, they can, dive into the contingency. But, this is another issue that the buyers are facing because they're trying to transfer risk. But in most cases, if you do the procurement process right, experts should be able to decrease your costs, never increase it. And now the second way, though, how they can show high performance to you is based on similar project to yours. One of the safest ways to identify an expert is recursively through their performance. The key to using an expert's past performance to prove their expertise boils down to similarity. An expert who has built 100 McDonald's successfully would not necessarily be an expert in building a skyscraper. Experts should demonstrate how their previous project performance is comparable to your specific project. The greater similarity between the expert's past performance and the current specific project, the stronger the indication of expertise. In cases where an expert cannot show comparability or previous project performance, there is a greater risk that they are not an expert. And there are more videos we have explaining how and what specific metrics you should be looking for. Now, in all my videos, I always end telling you the solution to how you can identify and utilize expertise better. And the best value approach is the answer. It is a procurement and project management process that utilizes all of these characteristics and evidence to identify an expert. The results have been amazing, as documented, and the approach requires no expertise in what you're procuring to select and manage an expert vendor. In using an approach like this, not only does internal costs to maintain expertise on the buyer side go down, but the performance from the vendor side should improve as well. And so if you want to learn more about the best value approach, you want to see more videos like this, please like, subscribe, leave a comment in the chat box, or also go to our website at pbsrg.com.